Okay, so, like, picture this. You're promised a throne. Okay, you're shipped off to a foreign country. You're 15. And then, bam, widowed,
Like,
isolated. Basically, you're a pawn in this huge royal power struggle.
yeah.
That's just a glimpse into the early life of Catherine of Aragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Henry VIII's first wife.
It's wild, right? How often those early years kind of get lost in the whole Henry and Anne Boleyn
Yes.
drama. But to really get Catherine her strength, I mean, she was resilient. We got to go deeper. Before the crown, before all that.
Okay, so rewind. We're talking princess, right? Daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella, the power couple of Spain.
Huge.
A rise in England, 1501, already married by proxy to Arthur, Prince of Wales. I mean, that's a lot to unpack right
Well,
there.
that's just the tip of the iceberg, honestly.
Yeah, and our sources, they paint a picture that's, it's even more complicated.
England back then, they were just coming out of this, like, brutal civil war, the Tudors, brand new dynasty, desperate to hold on to power.
Right, make their mark.
So Catherine, direct line to, like, old school European royalty. That's what Henry VIII wanted. Legitimacy, security, big time.
Not just a simple marriage contract, though, right? Like, one thing that really got me was the execution of the Earl of Warwick.
Oh, yeah. Brutal.
Ferdinand demanded it before Catherine even set foot in England.
Wow.
It was a total power play. Wipe out any potential rivals to Henry VII.
Right out of the gate.
Talk about setting the stage.
Absolutely. It's all about the politics, right? This isn't just a love story. This is England and Spain, a power couple. And Catherine, 15 years old, she's right in the middle of it.
And she comes in with her own agenda, too. Like, she insisted on going straight to church when she arrived. Big display of her Catholic faith.
Oh, for sure.
And get this, she traveled in this very traditional Spanish style. Total contrast to the English court. You know, they were all about flashy fashion at the time.
So was it just about, being devout? Or was she making a statement like, hey, I'm Spanish, this is who I am?
Don't forget where I come from.
Exactly. It shows she knew her role, not just a wife, but representing her whole country, her faith, her family. It's a lot.
She wasn't just going along with it, that's for sure. But even with this grand entrance, things weren't exactly, a fairy tale. The sources mention communication issues.
Oh, yeah. Imagine trying to have a conversation in Latin, but you learned it totally differently.
Mhm.
Total isolation, especially after her Spanish entourage gets sent back home. And then there's Arthur, her young husband,
Yeah. Not exactly the picture of health.
frail,
Yeah.
sickly. 6 months, that's all the marriage lasted before. Boom, sweating sickness, tragedy.
Tragic. And then there's the whole did they or didn't they? Was the marriage consummated?
The rumors, the whispers.
The doubts.
It's going to come back later.
Big time.
A ticking time bomb.
Totally. Arthur dies. It's chaos. Catherine, 16, a widow.
Oh.
She's vulnerable. Her future, totally up in the air.
Mhm.
But Henry VII, he's a practical guy. He's thinking, keep the dowry, make this alliance work somehow.
So everyone's looking at the new heir, young Henry, but
Oh.
there's a problem. A big one. The Bible, it forbids a man from marrying his brother's widow.
It was taboo, a curse even.
Oh.
And this is where that consummation question becomes huge. No consummation, maybe there's a loophole. And Henry VII, he's always thinking 10 steps ahead. Keep the dowry, he said, and Henry will marry Spain.
So Catherine's stuck, waiting for Henry to grow up. And it gets worse. Her mother dies, she's not as important politically anymore, and Henry VII, he turns cruel.
Oh, yeah.
Withholds her allowance,
Yeah.
basically holding her hostage.
That's a far cry from that grand entrance, huh?
No kidding. We see
Yeah.
Catherine, a princess, having to pawn her things just to survive. It's tough.
It shows her resilience, though, her ability to just endure, hold on to hope, serious strength of character.
Then there's this moment, a bit of hope. Her sister, Juana, comes to visit with her husband, Philip. You'd think, rescue time, right?
Right.
But not so fast.
Juana's got her own marital drama. Can't really help Catherine. And Philip. He's secretly trying to marry his daughter to young Henry.
Ugh, another betrayal.
Yeah. It just emphasizes how precarious Catherine's position is.
Back to square one, isolation.
Mm.
Years of just not knowing. But in all this, the sources hint at something kind of surprising. There's this growing affection between Catherine and young Henry.
Interesting.
Stolen glances at tournaments, this connection despite being kept apart.
Forbidden love, almost.
And then the twist. Henry VII dies. Young Henry, now King Henry VIII, he picks Catherine.
He picks her.
What started as a strategic alliance, it's something more now.
He'd known her for years, seen her strength, her resilience.
It's a win, a fairy tale ending.
Seemingly.
But as we know, this is just the start of Catherine's wild ride.
Oh, yeah. Those early trials, those hardships, they made her who she became.
Back to Catherine, right? Newly crowned Queen of England.
Yeah.
It all seems like perfect. Love match overcame all those obstacles.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, maybe. But you got to remember the pressure. Being queen back then, it wasn't all fancy dresses and parties.
Definitely not. What were the big expectations? What did she have to deal with?
The biggest. Producing a male heir. Huge. It wasn't just Henry wanting a mini-me, it was about the Tudor dynasty, making sure they stayed in power. No pressure, Rex.
So much pressure. Did it last? The whole happily ever after thing?
Well, not quite. Being queen, it came with even bigger challenges than Catherine faced as a princess.
Really? You think so?
Absolutely. All those expectations, everyone watching her every move, waiting. It must have been incredibly hard.
I bet. The sources, they talk about her being a really devoted wife, embraced English customs, even learned the language fluently. She was all in on being queen.
It seems like she really was. She tried her best, but there was one thing she couldn't control. The one thing everyone wanted.
The heir.
Yeah. Catherine had multiple miscarriages, stillbirths. Can you imagine? The heartbreak, feeling like you're failing, and the pressure just keeps building.
It's heartbreaking. Did she have any children at all?
She did. In 1516, a daughter, Mary, not the son Henry was dreaming of, but still a healthy baby. And Catherine, she adored her.
But a daughter? I mean, it wouldn't be enough for Henry, right? For his big dynasty dreams. That's when the cracks start to show in the marriage.
Exactly. The years go by, no son. Henry gets frustrated, and he starts to, question things like, was his marriage to Catherine even legit?
Because of the whole brother's widow thing?
That's right. He fixates on this Bible passage. It says if a man marries his brother's wife, they won't have kids.
But didn't they, get permission from the Pope to get married? To deal with that whole issue?
They did, years ago. Papal dispensation, the whole 9 yards. But Henry, he's getting older. No son. Maybe those doubts were already there, simmering. Or maybe it was just an excuse.
A way out.
Maybe. And then, of course, there's Anne Boleyn. Henry's totally smitten. And that's the beginning of the end for Catherine. Don't forget the bigger context here. This was also the time when Henry's getting more and more annoyed with the Catholic Church, all that power they had.
Right.
So when the Pope says no divorce, Henry sees it as a challenge.
A power struggle.
Exactly. And he decides, fine, I'll do it myself. Declares himself head of the Church of England. Bold move.
Wow. What about Catherine? How'd she take all this?
Catherine, true to form, she stands her ground. Nope, not happening. She says the annulment's bogus, that her marriage to Henry is real in God's eyes.
He's not backing down.
No way. She's strong, devout. A lot of people had sympathy for her. In England, even some other European countries, she became like the symbol of resistance against Henry.
She stood up to him when no one else would. Incredible.
It is. But we know the ending, right? Catherine loses her title, gets separated from Mary, and basically becomes a prisoner in her own home. It is. Her last years, she was lonely, sad. Died in 1536, still saying she was Henry's true wife, the real Queen of England.
Such a tragic ending to a life that started out with so much promise.
Yeah, a life full of, extremes, The highest highs, the lowest lows. But her story, it doesn't end there. We've got to talk about her legacy, the impact she had on England.
Okay, yeah. Next time, then, on the deep dive.
We're going deeper into the ripple effects of Catherine of Aragon, and trust me, they're still being felt today.
Back again for the deep dive. It's crazy how Catherine of Aragon, her story, it still gets to us, After all this time, we've gone from princess to queen, the highs, the lows, and she never gave up.
Yeah, and now the part I find most interesting, her legacy. It's not just the personal stuff, the tragedies, but what she did, how she fought back, it changed things. Big time.
Okay, so let's break it down. She gets pushed aside, but how did that affect England?
Think about Henry and the Catholic Church. He breaks away, starts the Church of England. That's huge. Changes everything. And Catherine, she didn't just go quietly. She believed in her marriage. That pushed Henry, fueled his fire, I think.
So her personal struggles, they became England's struggles.
Yeah, kind of. Her case, it was at the center of Henry's fight with the Pope. He couldn't just get rid of her. There would be consequences. It made him even more frustrated with the church, and bam, English Reformation.
Wow. Personal stories changing history. What about Mary? What happened to her through all this?
Imagine being her, your mom, humiliated. You're declared illegitimate, separated from her, not royal anymore. That messes you up, right? I think it shaped Mary, made her who she was when she became queen.
Her reign, it was There was a lot of religious turmoil, right? Like echoes of her mother's story.
Yeah, yeah. It's like Catherine's story. It casts this long shadow over England. And it makes you think, like, what does power really cost? What happens when faith, when doing what you think is right, clashes with politics? Tough questions.
What about Catherine, though? What can we learn from her?
She reminds us history, it's not just dates in kings and battles, it's about people making impossible choices, doing what they think is right in tough situations. We got to look closer, see the human side of things, their strength.
She stood up to Henry, defended what she believed in, even when it cost her everything. That's powerful.
It is. Even if you feel powerless, you can still make a difference. Catherine's story, it inspires, makes you think, and reminds us people are complicated. Life is complicated.
I think we've covered a lot, right? Catherine of Aragon, what a journey. Emotional. But we get her now, her place in history.
I agree. And I'm left with this question, knowing Catherine, how tough she was, how would she deal with our world today? What would she do?
Interesting. Makes you think. I guess that's the thing about history. Makes you curious, challenges what you think you know, and connects us to the past.
Totally. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Go explore more, read the sources, see what you find.
And we'll be back soon with another deep dive. Until then, happy listening.